Hello, my name is Natasha Sarah-Lorraine. I'm an attorney in Atlanta, and a fair bit of my practice focuses on employment law. We all have seen the headlines proclaiming Reopen America, and more businesses are beginning to resume their operations and open their doors to their customers, to their employees. So businesses need a post-pandemic plan. Recently, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration issued guidance for businesses to follow as they begin to reopen their doors and resume their operations. The purpose of these recommendations is to help decrease any liability that's related to COVID-19. So let's dive into the recommendations that OSHA has provided for businesses. Now, please be reminded that this is not intended to give legal advice. If you have a specific issue that you need addressed, please make sure you contact your or a lawyer to assist you with your specific legal question. You also want to stay on top of any new guidance that comes down from OSHA or the Center for Disease Control, as well as your local public health department and all applicable federal, state, and local laws. OSHA enforces the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, which requires employers to provide you with safe and healthy work conditions. Now, the Act has specific provisions that focus on several issues, but there is a catch-all in Section 5A1, which is called the General Duty Clause. The General Duty Clause requires employers to provide you with a workplace free from recognized hazards likely to cause physical harm or death. We all know that COVID-19 meets that criteria. So the question is, how can businesses reduce the transmission of COVID-19 and maintain healthy workspaces and healthy business operations? Well, let's dive into it. Number one, create a pandemic task force or response team. This response team would be responsible for setting plans in motion to respond to pandemics such as COVID-19. And those plans would address certain things such as routes of transmission, specific exposure risks, and sources of exposure. Now, some employers already have a pandemic task force or response team, but if you are an employer that does not, now is the time to create one. Times have changed and we have to respond accordingly. Number two, draft an infectious disease response plan policy. If you are an employer that already has this in place, once again, that is great. But if you are not, don't feel bad, but right now is the time to get one drafted. I highly recommend that you consult with your or a lawyer prior to drafting this policy. But these are some of the things that your policy will want to consider. Where can exposure occur? Is this a business with much or little interaction with the general public, or is this a contained workspace that is only being occupied by your workforce and employees? What are your non-occupational risks? Interaction at home or in the communities of the employees that can create a heightened risk of exposure at the work site. What are the personal risk factors of your workforce? Take inventory of your employees in considering their age or any chronic medical conditions that can heighten their susceptibility to exposure or infection, and the steps needed to insulate the population. Contingency plans. COVID-19 taught us that finding ways to adjust your operations are vital to surviving a pandemic. So you would want to consider ways to switch up your operations, staggering shifts, social distancing, teleworking, or even downsizing. Number three, implement basic infection prevention measures. Promote practices of good hygiene. Provide an area for employees, customers, and visitors to wash their hands with running water and soap. Post signs as reminders of the importance of frequent hand washing. Install touchless soap dispensers. Offer convenient placement of trash receptacles in common areas for discarding towels or paper towels used when washing hands. If soap and running water are not available, provide hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol. It may be best to install touchless sanitizer dispensers as well. Discourage the sharing of workers' phones, desks, offices, or other work tools. If sharing is required, provide sanitizing wipes to wipe down work tools that are borrowed or used. Routine housekeeping procedures. Deep cleaning of the office spaces on a regular basis. Sanitizing on a regular basis. 4. Develop policies and procedures focused on isolation and risk reducing measures. Here are the basics. If you have COVID-19 or COVID-19 symptoms, or if you are well and a family member has COVID-19 or the symptoms, notify your supervisor and stay home. Do not break home isolation unless it's under the direction of your healthcare provider or your local public health department. Also, self-monitor for and be on the alert of any coworkers or workplace visitors that are exhibiting COVID-19 symptoms and notify your supervisor immediately. Now, for the purposes of reporting any employees or workplace visitors that are displaying COVID-19 symptoms, employers want to draft a reporting policy for employees to follow so that they can have a chain of command to contact if they are in this position where they have to report an incident of COVID-19 symptoms or COVID-19 exposure. As to isolation policies and procedures, you want to immediately separate sick employees from the remainder of your workforce. These are employees that appear to have symptoms such as fever, cough, or any other COVID-19 related symptoms or characteristics. Whether an employee is identified as exhibiting COVID-19 symptoms upon his or her arrival at work or in the middle of their workday, you want to separate them and send them home immediately. Be sure this is a uniform policy. You don't want to give any implications of discrimination or retaliation, so you want to treat every employee the same. Any employee that is deemed sick or exhibiting COVID-19 symptoms should be subject to these policies and procedures. Many businesses have already provided the blueprint for different measures that can be taken to reduce the risk of transmission of COVID-19. Face masks, gloves. We've seen the installation of sneeze guards or plexiglass to separate co-workers' areas from one another. These are good measures to mitigate the transmission of bodily fluids. Maybe if you're a retailer, encourage self-checkout. Place markers in the workspace to encourage social distancing amongst the co-workers and workplace visitors. There is also the option of limiting the amount of workplace visitors that can enter the premises at a time. Many employers have also implemented taking the temperatures of their employees or workplace visitors. If this is something that you're considering doing, consult with your lawyer as soon as possible, as this could create logistical challenges. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Many businesses are about to reopen their doors, and these are measures that can help decrease liability with regards to COVID-19 related litigation. I understand we are facing unprecedented times, but we can get through this. We will get through this together. In the meantime, be safe, be well, be healthy, and I hope to see you again soon.